Hi, this is going to be a quick update video, or rather a response to my flame hover tutorial where we're going to talk about some of the updated strats, one major one in particular, but also just a couple little optimizations along the way. Do go check that out if you're not familiar with the trick, but if you are, then we're just going to be clearing some stuff up. Just as kind of an overview, we're going to watch the trick again. Do feel free to skip this if you're familiar. But let's go ahead and take a look at what's changed. Alright, so this is the trick. Again, you might be familiar, but there's three major things we're going to be talking about. The first of which is right here, the movement after setting up the morth in the corner. You can see I roll and set him up in the corner as we used to, but then also do a little item slide here. In my first video, I mentioned that that was the thing that we knew about. That's kind of like a loophole because, right, you only need to avoid having a certain positive speed and item sliding is negative. It is very fast to do that, but it was considered kind of iffy for a while. There are some things that make this okay, though. It's still hard. So notably, if we look in the first person, it's still a small range here, right? It's pretty easy to fall off. I actually fell off a lot in practice for this video, but one of the things that was concerning was that we were worried that walking around before the item slide, taking the first couple of steps before you go negative, would cause problems because it would move the morth. The fix for that, though, is just to start the item slide where you would normally be moving the morth around. So you can see I roll, and then I just do the item slide right out of that spot. And that avoids that problem. You still don't want to walk too much because he can bounce out of place even in the area that you would normally set him up. But, for the most part, that's okay. And then obviously you need to stop it at the right time and adjust your angle for the pot. So that's the smallest of the three. Not everybody's going to do that. I don't know if I would even do that in runs, but Al started doing that, and it's what happens in record, and it's worth mentioning that is definitely a faster way to do things and has been done in runs. The major change, and arguably the only reason this video exists, is this right here, the bow shot. If you watched the first video, you might remember that we used the morth up at the top there to line up and then slowly moved the camera down and then took the shot. That is horrible. Instead, now we just look down and take a shot. The way that works is we have visual cues on the wall that we use. And I say it that way, not as a universal visual cue, because everybody can really make their own. I am going to be demonstrating what I use in the game here. It's important to note that there are different ones per side. And so, okay, what's the best way to describe this? Think about it like this. Okay, so the morth is going to be kind of in that little corner there. And the visual cues we're going to be using are on this back wall. And you can see how they're kind of not in the same place, but that it's not too bad. What I'm trying to say here is that the position you have the morth here will slightly influence what visual cue you want to use, but less so over smaller distances. So as long as we keep the morth in relatively the same place, we can use the same visual cue without much concern. And it doesn't have to be like a very specific position, just pretty much like anywhere along where you would want him, right? Like not right here for the reasons we talked about in the first video, and then not way too far away because obviously you wouldn't want to waste that much time with the pot. But just somewhere around here seems good. So on this side, again, we're using the textures on the back of the wall, these sort of diamonds. I'm going to use the tip of the arrow to point here. We use these sort of diamond shapes, or at least I do. And the one I use, you can kind of see, so there's this first diamond down here, closest to this lower part. And there's the left point of that diamond. And then next to it, there's the left point of the diamond next to it. So if I go ahead and back up a little bit. I aim at that second point. Again, there's the first diamond right there. Here's the second one. There's the left point of it, and I want to aim below that. It does not have to be exact. There is a little bit of variance in this that is acceptable, but in general, you want to kind of, try to be about right. And I tend to aim pretty high. You do want to aim low enough to hit the morth, of course, but generally, like, the higher you are, the easier it is to recognize how close you are to that visual cue. So I tend to aim like about this high and take my shot. So that's the left side. The right side, again, same idea, roughly this distance away from the main platform. Let me scoot so we can see them a little easier. There's this diamond closest to the pillar, and then there's this one next to it. I use this top segment, right? So there's the 4 points. I use the top point and aim below it. So let's go ahead and back up here. And so I aim below that top point, or sorry, below that top point right there. Right about here. I take the shot. You can see the facing angle there is just about perfect. For reference, let's go ahead and switch back to the video. During the hover, when we're looking for if we're lined up correctly, you can see, yeah, this one isn't perfect. Let me go a little further. You can see the morth down there. Pretty much if any of the morth's body is intersecting with either one of Link's legs, the shot will hit. Whether or not you're going to have problems with the collision of the pillar is, that can vary a little bit, particularly if, so like in this instance, the pillar is on my right. If the morth was like really far over on my left leg, I would be a little concerned about the pillar kind of messing up my positioning. But just in terms of the actual arrow hitting the morth, if his body is touching, I mean, not literally touching, but you can kind of see how my right leg and the morth's body are overlapping here. If that is the case with either of his legs, he should be able to get the shot, and obviously everything in between. So that's the big optimization, is that aim. Really don't want to aim up and then go down. It's really slow and really error prone. This is much more reliable and fast. And then the final change has to do with mashing. So after taking the shot, we have to go back up to the heart. There's two things to note here. We want to think about mashing speed, because every time we hit the button, we're going to move up and forward. So we want to hit that button as fast as possible, as often as possible. In the first video, if you remember, it was kind of like a ghost slowly hovering over to the heart, right? I was maintaining constant height up against the fence in the back, and then slowly waited until I was over the heart and dropped. Instead, what we want to think about is getting as many inputs in as possible. But we can't just mash continuously, right? Because if we do that, then we're going to sail over the top, which is what I warned in the first video. But to avoid that, we just drop, right? So the fastest way to cover horizontal distance with a zombie hover is fast mashing, as fast as you can manage, until you hit a height that is too high to do whatever you're doing, in this case going over the fence, and then you drop to a more reasonable height, and then you continue mashing fast. So we'll see that. We're going to go really high, up past where we would want to go, and then I drop and start mashing really fast again. There is a little bit of leniency with that drop. You'll see in the second part here, while I'm dropping down to the heart, I actually kind of intersect with the top of the fence. Its collision is like, you don't want to push it, like you don't want to fly way over it, but in general, you don't have to stay behind it. As soon as you start going over it, you can drop. You'll see what I mean in just a second here. Yeah, you can see it kind of clip me back in. And then the final thing is you don't want to jump slash over the heart, because then you have to wait for the jump slash animation. There's kind of no way to avoid that if you come in to the side of the heart. The way to resolve that, of course, is just to land on top of the heart and be confident that you're going to land on top of it. And you can see I would be able to roll into the loading zone immediately. So that's it. Just a bit of clarification. Hopefully that helped. Big takeaway, do not use the old visual cue. Use the new ones on the wall. Or your own. You don't have to use mine. Just use something that you can do. Just use something from this angle, right? Where you can just, once you know the visual cue is good, you can just let go of the arrow and shoot the morth. It doesn't have to be the ones that I use. These ones work for me for the distance that I push the morth with the pot. If, for example, you use the leaf and you use 2 leaf blows and he ends up over here, you'd need a different visual cue. Because again, the displacement, the difference in position between this and that kind of throws off that aim. So yeah, that's it.